I'm Linda. I'm 62 years old, and exactly 3 weeks ago, I finally said no to my parents. Not a little no, not a polite I can't that's easy to brush off. I mean a firm, unapologetic, life-altering no. And I need you to hear what I'm about to say, because it might save you decades of your life. Not because my story is dramatic or scandalous, but because it's ordinary, painfully ordinary, and that's exactly why it matters. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. My parents, George and Marlene, were the kind of people everyone thought of as good and decent, hardworking, God-fearing, generous in their own way. On paper, I had everything a girl could want: a stable home, food on the table, church on Sundays, vacations to the lake every summer. And like most children of their generation, I learned early on that obedience was the currency of love. If I did what they wanted, I was a good daughter. If I hesitated, if I questioned, if I expressed even the tiniest spark of independence, the disappointment in their eyes hit harder than any punishment ever could. That lesson never left me. For 50 years, I obeyed. I went to the schools they picked. I dated the people they approved of. I married the man they thought would make me happy. A kind man named David who lived across town, the boy next door type they always imagined for me. I moved into the house they liked, worked the jobs they said were respectable, and spent decades quietly measuring my life against the invisible checklist they handed me. I wasn't unhappy, at least not in a way anyone could see. I had a career in education, a decent income, a husband who loved me, and children who adored me. I played the part perfectly. I smiled when they came to visit. I nodded when they criticized my decisions behind my back. I agreed when they lectured me about everything from my wardrobe to my parenting style. And yet, for all those years, a part of me was quietly dying. I remember the first time I realized just how deeply my obedience had shaped me. I was 45, and my son Jacob had just graduated from high school. I was sitting in my kitchen, alone, sipping a cup of coffee I didn't really want, and I thought, when did I stop living for me? The thought was terrifying. I had spent half a century doing exactly what my parents wanted, and I had nothing to show for the person I might have been if I'd ever said even once no. But I didn't say it then. I couldn't. Saying no was dangerous. Saying no threatened love, stability, and my identity as their daughter. It felt like stepping off a cliff, blindfolded into the unknown. And so I kept climbing the ladder of their expectations, even when it made me miserable. The years rolled on as years do. My parents aged. Their demands never faded. They evolved. I would get phone calls with veiled criticisms about how I was raising my grandchildren, about what I wore, about how I cooked, about what I read or watched or listened to. Every time I visited, I was subtly reminded that nothing I had done in life was exactly right in their eyes. And every time I swallowed my irritation, because that was what a good daughter did. It wasn't until my mother had her first stroke at age 78 that the cracks in my life became impossible to ignore. I spent weeks helping care for her. I drove her to appointments, helped with meals, cleaned the house, and sat by her hospital bed, quietly absorbing her complaints about doctors and nurses and how my father wasn't doing enough. I realized then that all those decades of obedience hadn't bought me freedom or gratitude. They had only bought me exhaustion and a sense of obligation that I could never escape. My father, George, was no easier. He had a quiet, rigid way of judging everything. He never raised his voice, but the disappointment in his stare was enough to make me shrink inside. For 50 years, I had tried to meet his expectations in every way I could imagine. I had tried to anticipate his needs, to keep the house perfect, to follow his logic, to choose friends and hobbies that he approved of, and still there was always something more, something small but piercing. I began to realize slowly that if I didn't start saying no, I would spend the rest of my life under their rules. And then one day, something inside me snapped. Not angrily, not dramatically, but quietly and absolutely. I was sitting in my living room, my husband David beside me, my granddaughter Lily playing on the floor, and I looked at my parents' text messages. Another critique, another reminder that I was not enough. And I thought, I cannot do this anymore. The first no I said wasn't even to them directly. It was to myself, the part of me that had been obeying without question for half a century. I said no. I will not live my life by their rules anymore. I will not let their expectations decide my happiness. The next no came in action. I told my father I couldn't attend a family dinner he had planned for the following weekend. Normally, I would have rearranged everything in my life to be there, but this time I said no, simply, firmly, and I waited, bracing myself for an explosion. There was silence for a moment, then a calm voice on the phone. "Oh," my father said, "okay." And that was it. Not anger, not guilt-tripping, just acknowledgement. I realized in that moment that the fear I had carried for 50 years, fear that they would reject me, that they would stop loving me, that I would lose their approval, was mostly in my head. From there, I began to experiment with small no's. I said no to calls I didn't want to take. I said no to unsolicited advice. I said no to their subtle criticisms of my parenting, my lifestyle, my choices, and with each no, I felt more alive, more myself, more human. It wasn't easy. My husband worried at first. "Are you sure?" he asked. "They've been part of your life for so long. What if they react?" But I knew something he didn't yet fully grasp. Saying no was the only way to reclaim my life. I couldn't stay trapped in decades of obedience just to keep everyone comfortable. Comfort, after 50 years, was a cage. By the time I told my parents, face to face, that I would no longer take their calls about how I run my household, raise my children, or live my life, I was shaking. My hands trembled, my chest tightened, but I said it. "I love you. I respect you. But I am done letting your expectations control me. I am done obeying at the expense of my own happiness." The room went quiet. My mother blinked rapidly, trying to process it. My father's jaw tightened, then he nodded. No yelling, no storming out, just acknowledgement. And then something remarkable happened. They adjusted, slowly, awkwardly, but they did. They stopped critiquing my choices, stopped judging my grandchildren, and began asking questions, not to control, but to understand. Living with that freedom for 3 weeks now, I feel renewed. I follow my instincts, prioritize my needs, say yes to what excites me, no to what drains me. The relief is overwhelming. My husband David sees it too. He says I'm glowing, but he doesn't just mean the surface level energy. He means the real, deep energy, the kind that comes from knowing you are finally living your life. My children notice it as well. My granddaughter Lily laughs more around me, snuggles more freely because her grandmother is fully present for the first time in decades. I want to be clear, this wasn't about disrespect or revenge. It wasn't rebellion for its own sake. It was about claiming my life, my boundaries, my dignity, and my happiness. Becoming a fully realized adult after decades of living by childhood rules. You don't need a dramatic reason to say no. Wanting to live authentically, to feel whole and respected is enough. After 52 years of bending to expectations, I finally said no, and I can't believe the life I'd been missing. Some nights, old anxiety creeps in, the fear of rejection, of losing them. But I take a deep breath and remind myself, the fear isn't real. My parents are still here. Our relationships have changed, yes, but they're intact. And for the first time, I'm not just surviving, I'm living. I want everyone watching this to know that reclaiming your life is possible, no matter your age, no matter how long you've been obeying, no matter how comfortable or good your life seems from the outside. Saying no is not selfish. Saying no is not cruel. Saying no is sometimes the bravest, most loving thing you can do for yourself and for everyone around you. My parents have had to adjust to me being me. That's been uncomfortable at times for all of us, but it has also been liberating, healing, and deeply human. I see them differently now, and I see myself differently too. We are no longer trapped in the roles that defined our lives for decades. We are finally free to be human together. So if you're sitting there feeling trapped by expectations, by obligations, by a lifetime of trying to please someone else, listen to me. Your desire to live authentically is valid. Your need to say no is valid. You are allowed to step out of obedience and into yourself. You are allowed to take up space in the world that belongs to you, not the one that others have mapped out for you. I know it's scary. I know it feels impossible. But trust me, it's not. It's liberating, it's life-giving, and it's never too late. I am Linda, and after 50 years of obedience, I said no, and my life, my real, beautiful, full life, is just beginning. If my story resonated with you, subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications because there are more stories coming. Stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things simply by claiming their right to live authentically. And if you've had a similar experience, or if you're in the middle of your own journey of saying no, leave a comment. Share what you're thinking, what you're feeling, because these conversations matter. Your story matters.